Welcome to the Practical Guide to Autism Employment, brought to you by Autism Workforce Solutions. I am your host, Karina Gaudier, founder and CEO of Autism Workforce Solutions. On this podcast, we explore how together employers, professionals, educational institutions, families, and autistic people can create more inclusive workplaces, unlock untapped talent, and connect people with meaningful opportunities to benefit everyone. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Practical Guide to Autism Employment, brought to you by Autism Workforce Solutions. I am Allie Crawford, founder of Crawford Connected, where we help bridge the gap between the questions people are actually asking and the experts who are best equipped to answer them. We're excited to be here with Karina Gaudier today to bring some of the questions we see from employers, educators, families, and autistic professionals to give answers with practical, evidence-based guidance from Karina herself. July is Disability Pride Month, and we'll be discussing what it can actually look like in the workplace and in life for neurodivergent individuals. For some, this month is about celebrating identity. For some, it's about advocacy. But today we're exploring what disability pride can look like in careers, workplaces, and ultimately everyday lives. So welcome, Karina.
Thank you. Hello.
So when people hear about the words disability pride, many automatically think about awareness campaigns or celebrations, but in your work, it looks much different. What does disability pride actually look like in the workplace, and why is this shift so important?
That's what my work is rooted on. I'm trying to move from a medical mode, which, it kind of tells us that, this is something to be fixed, or it's seen as like a disease or some sort of thing that can be fixed, and moving into like more of a social mode of disability, meaning we're the same. We just have a different structure, but we should still be accepted as a person. So it moves more into like a societal change as well, versus just a medical disability. So that's the first thing. So is understanding that we don't have to be fixed. We just operate differently, the same way that we have different race, different gender, different everything. We're just like a different type of human diversity. We don't want to be tolerated. We just pretty much want to be accepted. So moving away from thinking, oh, I need to do all these things to fit into the society idea of how I should behave, or a workplace idea of how I should behave, or what I should need, or how I should mask. All those things are very harmful for autistic people and neurodivergent people. So to me, is removing that expectation that we have to mask, that we have to change ourselves in order to be able to be in a workplace or be accepted in society, because we have so many strengths, right? Pattern recognition, analytical thinking, honesty. We're very reliable, and we bring a different way of thinking. Like, who wouldn't want that in a workplace?
That's amazing. It's such a great transition of mindset, really. That's the biggest shift that's happening there. It's just the way that we're viewing something. And one thing that naturally comes up when we talk about masking, that's a term that you mentioned there, is burnout. So this is one of the biggest questions that we're actually hearing from autistic professionals, that burnout is something that is really real. And many people sadly assume that it's because they aren't capable enough for the job, but your sort of positioning is very different from this. So can you talk about that transition from masking into burnout?
I think even neurotypical people can have burnout, right? That's just a thing. But for us, it affects us a lot deeper. So what something as simple as like talking to another person could be invigorating for a neurotypical person, or they would like that. That takes so much mental energy from us that, that's what would lead to burnout. Or when we have to constantly be thinking, oh, how should I start this conversation? I don't want to sound rude, because if I am too direct, people are going to think I'm rude. So all this mental gymnastics that we have to go through every day at work like it causes massive burnout, right? Versus like a neurotypical person would get burned out maybe from the actual job or from, the like whatever environment they're at, so it's a different type of burnout. And when we do have burnout, it's something that we cannot like get out of it easily. So it will impact our lives, like our daily lives, cause like a lot of anxiety more than we normally would have. So we are always thinking of ways to help our brain function more efficiently, right? If you remove those things that take away so
Right.
much from us, we can do an amazing job. So, disability pride allows us to be ourselves. So, I don't know, I have here so many little toys that when I'm nervous, I just fidget it with, right? Or I have my noise canceling headphones, or I have my service dog. So many things that and if people wouldn't look at me when I'm using those tools to help regulate my nervous system, if instead of them looking at me like an alien or oh my god, what is wrong with this person, they would just be like, yeah, it's just another Tuesday, it's fine.
Right.
That would help a lot.
Yeah, and then that's the thing too. It comes into understanding yourself, to understand, for yourself, what are those things that really support you in those times, and thinking about your own strengths, thinking about your own boundaries. And often the next question becomes, how do I actually find the workplace where I can succeed and where people might actually accept me? Why are interviews so difficult? And should I disclose my autism? Those are some really common conversations that are happening. How does approaching employment through the lens of disability pride change the entire experience? And what's some of your advice?
So again, our brains are very different. So everything has to be incorporated in a different way, right? So, for example, an interview, if you send us the questions beforehand, we're going to be able to prepare and give you the best answer we can. It's not that we cannot think on the spot, it's just we have to kind of take a little bit of time to do our research and come up with the best that we can. That's one thing. Writing, a bunch of words in a posting that mean nothing, right? Focus on the actual tools that you're going to need at work, or the systems that the person needs to know to be able to do the job. Like, focus on the technical, not teamwork. That means nothing, right? So
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
very clear in what you're doing, and then you're gonna get the best candidate. Because who would you rather have? Someone that is a team player, or someone that knows the systems and can give you the best results,
Right.
right? I think pride, to me, disability pride is you know incorporating all these different types of like interviewing, or how you give feedback, or how to help that person be the best that they can, how to focus on their strengths. All that can also be mapped out to atypical people, right?
Yeah.
Which team wouldn't be better with those things? So I am trying to advocate to have that as like a standard practice, not as something like an accommodation,
Yeah.
or and that transition, I think it has been the biggest challenge, is making sure that companies understand that this will benefit you in the long run for all your employees, sorry, not just like the autistic employees.
Right. And that it shifts the wording in a job posting. That isn't going to take that much more resources, time, or effort. It's understanding the opportunity costs that come with not making those small adjustments. And that, again, like you said, it's going to affect everyone in a really positive way, because the right people will be able to see themselves in those job options. So that's a really great suggestion there. Neurodivergent employment often doesn't happen in isolation. That's another whole category that we were speaking about. And behind many of these successful professionals are the families that are also learning how to support independence in a new way. Some of the questions we're hearing from the families of these autistic individuals is, how do I support them as they begin into their career? So from your perspective, what role can families actually play while still encouraging independence and disability pride?
So, number one is stop treating your adult autistic child as a child, right? They outgrown that phase. So that would be the first one. Encourage them to actually self-advocate in a workplace and, request, here are just my accommodations. This is the bare minimum that I need to be able to work, right? So this is the first part. Validate when they come to you with sensory overload or when they're exhausted. And I think that's the hardest part for families to understand it. What the way we feel things and how that like makes us exhausted is a different level than, oh, I just had a bad day at work, right? Really validate the feeling when we tell you, I am exhausted, I cannot get out of my bed. That's not us being lazy. That's literally like our nervous system is just shot. So I think that's very important as well. Create a very welcoming environment when they come back home. So make sure that the environment doesn't have any sensory overload. Make sure that they have all their fidgets or all their stuffed animals or whatever they use to regulate themselves ready. That way, once they come back from work, they can actually decompress and feel better, right? And really talk about it. But don't talk about it in a condescending way. Talk about it in like a curious way. So ask questions like, okay, what happened at work? And what did you do about it? And oh, here maybe is how you could have done a little bit different, or here's how you can improve this. And really try to like reduce the stigma around talking openly about autism. We talk openly about depression, we talk openly about cancer, we talk openly about, I don't know, all sorts of diseases. Why can't we just talk openly about autism? It's mind-boggling to me. So,
and I think that that's so helpful once individuals start to learn about themselves, to know, okay, these are the accommodations I need. This is what has worked for me. This is the amount of time I might need. The more clarity you're coming to your employer saying, this is my cheat sheet to me,
yeah.
It's so helpful for them to be like, okay, great, I don't have to guess also. And as the families are coming in to support as well, that's a really big role in maybe asking those curious questions rather than condescending questions, asking the curious questions to help those individuals also find out what those things are for them by allowing them to speak and contemplate and things like that. That can, help, I'm sure, help to find those specific things just by introspection. Although these families do play such a huge role in a long-term success, it also depends on the workplaces that these individuals are entering. So many employers themselves are asking questions about retention, communication, and creating stronger teams. So these are issues that they're already facing, that they already need those improvements for. And during Disability Pride Month, why is inclusion so much more than just a legal compliance? And what practical changes can these leaders actually start making today?
Okay, so compliance is like bare minimum, right? That's not what we want to achieve, right? That's not our goal. We want the inclusion to be the standard, right?
Right.
So that's the first one. Once you implement that, it just means that you're going to have a higher percentage in your retention. You're going to reduce the turnover, right? Because if people feel comfortable and they feel like they can be themselves, they're more likely to stay. Majority of people leave jobs because of a bad environment, right? So bringing in psychological safety, that's another topic that a lot of employees are also talking about. If you improve communication, the psychological safety goes right hand in hand with it. And understanding that if you're bringing someone that the brain works differently, that will create innovation, that will create a different way of doing things. So that is just a smart decision. It that's good ROI. I don't know how people are not seeing this, but I think three very quick and practical leadership skills that we can actually be changing and
Mm-hmm.
companies can start implementing is be very clear on your expectations, standardize the onboarding. So all the things that I talked about earlier, make that the standard, right? Not, oh, hey, this is a special favor I'm doing for you.
Right.
And then use what we call a universal communication practices, which is you implement all that like in all levels. It doesn't matter if it is a director, a CEO, or a low end manager or an employee, right? So again, communication is the key to everything in life. So if you are making your communication and the way that you're talking to your employees better, not just autistic people, that can be like neurotypical people as well. Like they
Right.
will feel safer and they will give you a better work or a better result than if they're always scared to show who they are.
Yeah, so bridging off of that advice, those three practical steps, you've also created a free worksheet for Disability Pride Month. You want to give a bit of an intro into that as well?
Yeah, so to honor Disability Pride Month, I wanted to give back to the community. So I created this free day one guide on hiring neurodiverse people. So companies can just download it and kind of it's a step by step on what to do, how to talk, and also a breakdown by the hour of how the day should look like. And also like for the neurodiverse employee, they can also kind of go through and see if that feels good for them, and then they can also get that to their employer. So it's up to get the ball rolling, and that's how they can start this conversation. But like we're actually aiming to change policy and to change the environment. So
That's amazing. And also in creating these inclusive workplaces, it also means preparing people before they ever enter the workplace. So that's the role of kind of before this talking about the role of the actual workplaces. One concern we're actually hearing from educators, so people that are supporting these individuals through their elementary school, high school, they're asking what is happening for these individuals after graduation as well. And students are often receiving that support through school, but many struggle once they enter the workforce. What is actually happening during this transition?
essentially, all the support that you would have until you were 18, they're gone. Because
Right.
people think that autism stop existing once you're an adult. We call that the service cliff, meaning you're literally falling down because you have everything that you had so far is gone. So that's why we struggle the most when it comes to that transition. So someone like myself, I have so many degrees and I was always good at schooling. That doesn't automatically convert into being a successful employee,
Right.
right? Because the rules are very different and we are not kind of nobody prepares us for that, right? So that's why changing the way that the workforce readiness is available, it does help with like executive functioning, communication, and us feeling like we can self-advocate. That's very important. And a way to mitigate that bridge is for universities to start preparing the students with practical employment tools or lessons, so they know what to expect in the workforce. And also, of course, if they both can kind of have that synergy where the university is preparing the students,
Right.
and then the company comes in, but they're following that same universal onboarding.
Okay, so whether somebody is an employer, educator, family member, or autistic professional themselves, usually the common next question is, where do I begin? So, what are some main takeaways you want the listener to actually take from this conversation today and put into action during and after Disability Pride Month? And what resources can you offer to help them bring these ideas into practical action?
Okay, so come and talk to me. But, I released a book that it's called A Practical Guide to Autism in the Workplace that is for companies and autistic people to kind of, understand and work together. It's available on Amazon. Again, download the free day one guide that I mentioned earlier. That can be very, very helpful. I do consultings and workplace training. So if companies are ready to really embrace this idea and they want to move in with that as a way of innovating their workforce, I'm here. And it's just changing the mindset also. Instead of mitigating something after something already happened, let's prevent it, right? So all my work is designed around multiple audiences, right? So for each of them, we have a very specific way of doing things. But in the end, they're all kind of tied together, right? Because the autistic person is going to go through an educational institution and then is going to go to work, right? So I'm just encouraging people to go and listen beyond just this episode. And if you want to learn more, you know where to find me.
So Karina, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience today. I think what stands out most is that disability pride isn't just about awareness. It's about creating an environments where people can contribute, succeed, and be valued for who they actually are. And we hope today's conversation has given you some practical ideas that you can start applying right away.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to learn more, go to my website, Autism Workforce Solutions. Follow us on Instagram, podcast, or YouTube. Handle is Autism Workforce Solutions. And remember, cognitive diversity isn't something to be managed. It's just something to be understood, supported, and celebrate. Happy Disability Pride Month, and I'll see you next time.